Alright, so today we're going to look at subtracting polynomials. And the biggest part of subtracting polynomials, it's really the same as adding in many ways. But what we want to do is we want to look at what happens when we have a minus sign in front of a set of parentheses. And what happens here is we have to go ahead and invoke the distribution property in order to go ahead and change that second or third or whatever polynomial it is into something we could go ahead and combine like terms with. And in order to do this, we need to go ahead and distribute. And all the distribution property does is it's like multiplying everything by -1. And so when we go ahead and multiply, we want to go ahead and think about, I remember I showed you guys this a long time ago. This is a way for multiplication and addition of integers. Go ahead and figure out what sign I need. All right. All multiplying by negative does is going to change every sign in the parentheses. So if I have a negative times a positive, so these two, that's going to give me a negative 6x squared. Because a negative and a positive gives me a negative, right? And we're going to do that for each of these. So we have another negative and another positive. So we're going to have a minus x. And a negative times a negative gives me a positive. So we have a plus 9. And so we're going to use this entire idea when we're talking about subtracting polynomials in order to go ahead and make sure that we have the right signs before we try to combine like terms. Right? So something simple like 3x plus 3 minus, I don't know, x plus 7. All right? When we have something simple like this, what we're going to do first is always, when I see this minus sign, I know I have to use the distribution property. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute that through first. Now, very similar to what I talked about before, I know just my signs are changing, so I can do this while I'm changing my signs. And I can go ahead and say, okay, well, a negative and a positive gives me a negative, so I have a negative x. I'm going to write it under its like term. And then I have a negative and a positive. That again is going to give me a negative, so minus 7. And then from there I could go ahead and combine my like terms. All right, so I have 3. Remember there's an invisible 1 here. So 3 minus 1 is 2. Don't forget your x. And I have a positive 3 and a negative 7. Remember when we're going ahead and have opposite signs, we subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. In this case, it's negative, so minus 4. All right, so I'm going to do a few more examples for you to go ahead and clarify just a little bit more. So here I have an example, 2x plus 6, in parentheses, minus x plus 2. We have to go ahead and invoke the distribution property. And I'm going to go ahead and, as I do this, write it under the other equation. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. So I have a minus and a plus. That's going to give me a negative, so I have a minus x. Then a minus and a plus 2 is a minus 2. And from there I can go ahead just combine like terms straight down. So I have 2 minus a 1, which is just a positive 1. Don't forget your x. You don't have to leave your 1. You can leave your 1 at this point. Just remember that if that 1's not there, it's not any different. And then plus 6 minus 2, so I have $6, spend $2. I have $4. If you were doing a multiplication or a multiple choice, not multiplication, this would look like x plus 4. So I wouldn't put that 1 in my answer. If you leave it there, for right now, that's totally fine while we're going ahead and adjusting using integers. I also now encourage you, every time I have an example up, I would love for you to try it. So I'd love for you to try this guy down here. Pause the video, take a couple minutes, try it out, practice your skills, and then watch me work it out. In this way, you get a little bit extra practice before we go ahead and start working on the assignment. Right? So pause right here, give you a chance to pause the video, and resume in just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute through. And as I do this, I'm going to go ahead and write them under my first polynomial. So I have a double negative. This is going to be a plus 3x. And a negative and a positive gives me a negative 6. Combining my like terms, I have 8x. Negative 3 and negative 6 gives me a negative 9. And once you reach this point, you're done. You aren't doing anything else with this at this particular moment. All right, so a little bit longer example. Now I have two trinomials. Again, I totally encourage you to pause the video, try it, and then watch me work it out before you go ahead and try the practice problem. So I'll give you a moment before I start. So go ahead and pause and try it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute. And as I distribute, I'm going to go ahead and write them under their like terms. So I have a negative times positive. That gives me a negative x squared. Negative and a positive 6x give me a negative 6x. And a negative gives me a plus 5. Going ahead and combining like terms. Now I want you to notice that my x squareds are opposites. I have a plus 1x squared and a minus 1x squared, which gives me a 0x squared. When that happens, just like when we went ahead and solved equations, these are going to cancel themselves out, so those no longer exist. Now we're just working with the rest of the values. So I have a negative 4x and negative 6x, same sign, add and keep the sign. I have negative 10x. I have 2 plus 5, which is plus 7, and at this point I'm done. So sometimes things will cancel out on you. That is totally 100% okay. Just make sure you're watching your signs and making sure that's what's really happening. Again, I go ahead and I would encourage you to pause the video and try below. These ones here, not everything matches up, so just be really careful. And pause, go ahead, try it, and then I'll work it out in just a second. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and apply the distribution property first. So I have a negative and a positive, which gives me a minus y squared, and I'm going to write it under its like term. I have a negative and a negative. It's going to give me a plus 3. Notice the 6y doesn't have a match. That's totally okay. Sometimes that happens where something is happening, there's no match involved. Combine like terms for what you have. So I have 5y squared and minus 1y squared. So 5 minus 1 is positive 4. Keep the y squared. Do not change your variable at all. The 6y is by himself. There is a big blank spot here. He has no match. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite him. And I have a positive 13 and a plus 3, which gives me plus 16. And at this point, I'm done. I've done exactly what I've been asked to do. All right. One more here. I encourage you again, pause the video, try it, work it out, and then look at the work on the video. So I'll take a moment to go ahead and let you do that. All right, so again, I'm going to go ahead and use the distribution property on the second polynomial, which in this case is a binomial. And I'm going to write these like terms under anything that's like in the first one. So I have a negative and a positive, which gives me a negative 5y squared. And that negative 5y squared is going to be written under its like term. I have a negative and a negative, which gives me a positive 16y. I have a y term, so plus 16y. Notice there's nothing right here. That's totally okay. I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. So I have 13 minus 5, which gives me a positive 8y squared. I got 16 plus 16, which give me a 32y. And then just drop down the plus 11. Okay, so go ahead and work on the practice problems. Let me know if you have any questions. If you were testing and have questions another day, that's fine. Just go ahead and reach out during our live hours, and I will see you in the next video.